I feel like as I'm putting these chips together that I'm risking too much of my tournament when I decided to bet the turn and not bet this river.
But this is now actually the best street to bluff.
Hey guys, I'm Andrew Moreno, and I'm joined here with the Raise Your Edge guys. And we're doing a final table review today of my World Series of Poker circuit main event, which was $1,700 buy-in. I believe there was around 1,700 entries, and this is the final 9. And first place in this tournament was $210,000, and that's kind of what my mindset was going in. I was entering the final table second in chips with, I believe I had around 4.2 million, and the blinds were around 25 and 50,000 with a 50,000 big blind ante. So I think we're just going to go ahead and look at some of these hands, some of these spots, and we can, see what I did, okay, what I did great, what I did really poorly, and just kind of go from there.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Great. Looking forward.
But yeah, I think a couple things that I had just kind of strategized going into the final table was I was just thinking that having the chip leader 2 to my right, who had, I believe he had around 7 or 8 million. I had around 4.5, and then a lot of the other stacks were pretty middling. The guy on my immediate left had around 2.5, and then the other players were all hovering around 20 big blind stacks, and they were very, I would say, like pretty tight conservative recreational players. So I was really only concerned about the chip leader and kind of the player on my left.
So those guys weren't reshoving much?
No, I thought that they were going to be like rejamming like pretty poorly. Like probably folding hands, they should be jamming a lot.
Yeah, that's very typical for recreational players, and something you got to keep in mind especially when you get involved in very marginal spots, that just you having a big stack and open raising is the max EV strategy. Like if you're not playing against very strong opponents, you not need to involve yourself into very marginal spots. Because just being in this tournament, being on this final table with a big stack has such a huge EV for you. And then additionally, when your opponents are very weak, your EV even skyrockets more, and you definitely want to stay out of any kind of trouble. So just being open raising a lot and betting a lot of flops and maybe second barreling some good turns, but don't try to like go for huge bluffs when you know that it's very close, when you put your tournament life at risk or your good position at risk. This is what I would say the main strategy after you were sharing the lineup for this table with us.
Yeah, and the thing that I found really fascinating about that was I just got into so many situations where I would have, kind of really poor hands, and I just found myself betting a lot for really small sizing. And the nature of these tournaments now, it's like, I was min raising, and with the big blind ante, the big blind was just defending so much, so I was getting into a lot of spots where I would just have like really poor equity, really bad hands, and they would be defending a lot, and I would just be bluffing a lot for really small sizing. And I guess I was just kind of, we can go over some of those hands here too, but just like curious if that was going to be, if I should have been adjusting by maybe raising a little bit larger pre-flop, or maybe not raising so many hands. But it sounds like raising a lot of those hands was going to be the best strategy.
Yeah, sounds very decent. Let's jump into the first hand.
All right, let's do this. Okay. So this is the first hand here. What I have. Okay, so this one
So you're the clear chip leader, right? Or you're second in chips?
I'm second in chips here.
Okay.
So the clear chip leader is 2 to my right, but we're pretty far out in front of everyone else.
Okay.
Yeah, this guy here is pretty tight, this Asian guy. And the big blind to me, who's the villain in this hand, he's pretty unknown. I'd played with him probably the least. He seemed to be fairly tight, but not entirely sure. Yeah, and then this king 7 offhand, again, like this wouldn't be something I would be used to be raising, but I just thought like high card, in position.
Yeah. This is a good adjustment when you play table with very weak opponents. Your adjustment is to just open raise very loose. You're just printing so much money. So he's defending from the small blind, right? Not from the big blind.
Maybe, I guess, yeah. So this must
it says
be
small blind.
I think they actually said there was a graphic error in the recording.
Okay.
So they said he was actually in the big blind.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember this as the big blind. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then it would be a weird defend from the small blind.
And here, I'm really just wanting to get my sizing right. I want to use a really small sizing here. My thought is just like betting a lot of hands here. I think I'm going to get called by ace high a decent amount. So what are your thoughts on sizing here? Because obviously, like, I go small here, but I mean, is it possibly even better to go even smaller, or at some point does it just become just too small? Because I think that his calling range is pretty static to most small sizings, so I don't think it's going to change too much.
What do you think, Michael? Would you choose a similar sizing, or?
Yeah, I think somewhere between a quarter and third pot seems pretty good with most of your range. I mean, you could probably check back some ace size, but then just because I think he's meant to check raise a lot there, but he's probably not, so you can just get away with basically betting range there for a small sizing. Should be pretty effective.
Yeah, I like it. I think everything between a quarter and a third is totally fine.
Yeah, and I like what you say too about that they're meant to check raise a decent amount versus that sizing, and kind of an exploit for someone that just is not doing that at all, probably, or at a very low frequency, is to just bet more for that size. And on the turn king here, I felt like this was a decent spot to check behind. I thought he was going to have like a lot of low equity hands, some showdown value, and I could potentially pick off some bluffs on the river. Definitely value bet when check too on a lot of rivers. But as far as line here, do you think, with like turning a king, this part of my range, is this a part of my range that I should be betting? I know I don't have much of a kicker here as well.
Do you think he's going to be check raising 5x much on the flop? Like, do you have any info on him?
I would say that I would, for that sizing, I wouldn't be surprised to see a check raise. I think it's definitely a mix of like raising and calling. I mean, it's easy to say that now because I can see that he's called here, but I'm not really too concerned about getting check raised here as a bluff. Like pretty much ever. So,
I mean, I think turn you could potentially bet for value. It's obviously nice to have in your check back range, but if he's check raising a lot of his 5x on the flop, it seems like a pretty good card that we could barrel with a fairly wide range. Then he's kind of forced to call still with 4x and maybe some medium pocket pairs. But yeah, I mean, I think it's close.
I think the reason why... Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no, just the reason why I wanted to in-game check this back was that I was just imagining what kind of hands that he'd be calling on the flop with from my sizing, and I thought there'd be a lot of like pretty low equity hands that would just be forced to fold on the turn. And I thought like versus a check turn, a lot of those hands could improve to maybe a pair or just decide that they want to bluff because they don't have showdown value. So that was kind of my main reason for turning this hand into a check on the turn.
Something I would like to add, and this is basically what I mentioned at the beginning, is when I'm in those situations, because now the pot slowly starts growing, is that I don't want to avoid these very marginal spots. So if I'm not sure whether he check raises the flop with 5x or his bluffs, and I don't really know how he constructs his range, I'm just trying to keep it very simple. I'm aware of my position in the tournament. I want to keep the pot small. I only have 2 streets of value anyway, so then I just check back the turn and pot control. I don't want to make myself susceptible towards any kind of aggression where I'm actually forced to call once more, and then I'm playing a hand that I don't want to play in such a huge pot. I mean, sometimes we have to. I don't want to say try to stay away from any big pots always, ever. No, that's not the point. But it's about staying away from spots that are EV-wise marginal. So yeah, I'm definitely leaning more towards checking. He will have a lot of very low equity hands like 6-8, and also he can easily have some better king high floats, like all the suited king X, like even something like king 8 in hearts. I think people will be calling, even though in an ICM situation it's probably more often a fold. Also was small sizing, but he has all the king queens with backdoor flush draw, king jacks, king 10s. So yeah, I would definitely lean. And I think if he has 8s, 9s, 10s, he will be calling a river bet very often anyway. So yeah, I'm definitely checking back the turn.
Okay, that all makes a lot of sense too.
That's the best river for you.
Yeah. Yeah. When he checked on the river too, I mean, obviously I think my hand is good here, but I expected him to lead a 5 a lot when the turn goes check. But, you know, now I'm just kind of thinking about what sizing I want to use. Really looking to get called by like ace highs here, some 4x, some pocket pairs. I don't think I want to bet too large because I'm targeting a pretty weak range here. But it's definitely, when he thought for longer than like 15 seconds, or 10 seconds, I kind of had a feeling that he might raise. Yeah, and again, this guy, I'm pretty sure he's a recreational player. It's kind of one of those situations where I'm not. I don't think these are the kind of guys that are just going to be bluffing like hardly ever in this spot. So I obviously like really want strongly consider folding here. He doesn't raise very large.
What do we think about using like maybe a little bit bigger sizing on the river? Like, do you think he's pretty? Do you think it's going to be much of a difference if you went say like 360 between say like 50% pot or maybe like 80% pot? If it's going to affect his calling range too much?
See, that's a good question, because to me, like, these situations and like the bet sizings are so important in these tournaments because you're so often working with so few big blinds that I think it can definitely sway it, especially at the very beginning of a final table where people don't really want to, you know, jeopardize their chip position so much.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think if I had gone with a larger sizing, that I could fold, and I still think I can fold here. But I don't really know much about this player. I just I think he's a recreational player. He's probably the guy I played with the least through the tournament. So I just thought like I was too high up in my range, and that given I don't really know much about this player, that this would be a hand I could call.
Yeah, it's definitely very, very nice to spot.
Lots of chops, obviously.
Yeah. And he's like, I got you, bud.
I think that 7, 6, 6, 8, let's say 3 deuce suited are just very often leading the river. So, I mean, it's so easy to say now that you can see he has quads to judge as, yeah, it's an easy fold. That's not what I'm trying to say, but, and it's sometimes so hard to have this clarity in game, but all the 6, 7s, 8, 6, they're just probably betting himself. Like, what is he bluff raising them? Ace highs? I doubt that. And I don't judge your call, and I don't think it's going to make you lose any money in the long run, because I think everybody's calling a king, so it's like a zero-sum game. I would be concerned if people would start folding a king there, and you're not getting paid off when you have the quads. But I think that if you think it through, it's a spot where you can make a lot of money by folding. Because you need to be very creative to find enough bluffs here on the river. that I just don't think will ever happen. And you're just splitting, and he's nothing raising worse for value. And also, I would size it up a little bit for one reason. In cash games, I like your sizings, or in let's say, situations with little ICM or noise ICM, I like your sizing. On final tables, I'm leaning more towards a bigger sizing for one reason, that tens and jacks appear more often as calling range than in a 3-betting squeezing range. And these hands are so strong for him, perceived, that he's never folding them, even if you bet 3/4. And even sixes or sevens, like, he's probably, well, just one overcard. I gotta at least put 2 bets, so he's calling anyway. And then you have also much easier life to fold against the raise.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I totally agree, and it's one of those things. Like, looking back, I wish I could have come to that in game. And then I actually, so I might have a little bit. Oh, I see the time here. I was having a hard time finding the time at the bottom. So, but yeah, I can just jump to the next hand. Or do you guys want to say anything else about that one?
No. I think it's better when we try to do more hands and keep the analyze a little bit more short and also a little bit more beginner friendly. And yeah, and then I think we get the most out of it.
Sure. Yeah. So here, King 9. I think, given my strategy, this is a pretty reasonable open. And again, like, just to reiterate or just kind of clear up a little bit, as far as my decision on my frequency on raising and the nature of the big blind ante, do you think that min raising is going to be the highest EV, or given the type of, like, kind of scared opponents that I have here, or at least like ICM considering opponents, I should say, and probably not jamming or defending as much as they should be, should I be adjusting by doing anything other than min raising?
I think it depends from opponent to opponent. Someone that doesn't really call that much, I think you just keep min raising. If someone defends a little more, you raise bigger. And as a default, yeah, I would go a little bit more like towards 2.5x. This guy folding ace-3 suited on the button is also, like, I think he has 2 million, so you're 40-50 big steep. Button versus cutoff, I don't think he can ever fold a suited ace there. He has position.
I think, was it offsuit?
No, suited. It was suited, I think.
Was it? Let me just... Oh, it looks offsuit, I think.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry, this is... Okay, yeah, so... yeah, I think I'm betting this texture a ton.
Yeah.
Small sizing again. Let's see, it's 50K big blind, yeah, so... Yeah, basically, like, my thought here is, like, I'm going to be betting probably twice a lot, and just try to, like... I mean, this is something I do in cash games a lot, which is, like, really what I was, like, mostly curious about this hand, was that when I'm in a situation where I have, like, a pretty big range and nuts advantage, I tend to start using really big bet sizes, especially over bet sizes. And I thought, like, in this spot, given that this guy just moved his stack up to 3 million, if I used a really large sizing, I could really leverage some fold equity and get him to fold pretty much everything. I thought when he has flush draws that aren't like combo draws, he would be wanting to fold those. He would be folding all of his Jack X. He'd be folding a lot of his, like, ace 2, ace 5, basically like any ace that's not like 2 pair, or like ace king or ace queen that's like slow played. So, I mean, maybe I'm a little bit optimistic here, and maybe I'm doing it a little too much, but I just thought, like, as an exploit versus people that were going to be folding way too much to a lot of aggression, that I could just use the turn as, like, an inflection point and not really look to bluff rivers when I get called here on the turn. And again, I'm not really sure. This is something I do more in I do this a lot in cash games, especially against players that I know. Yeah, I mean, it might be a little too optimistic to think he's folding a lot of those ace X's and flush draws because he is a recreational player. But again, like the nature of the final table and like his chip position specifically, like he's just moved into a really comfortable third place, and I believe we're 8-handed at this point.
It's definitely a very advanced player, I would say. If you have a lot of experience and you're very sure he's going to fold any jack and any 3, it will always be profitable because he's calling any jack and any 3 on the flop. And then if he folds all of them against the pot bet, you're making money. And I think it's safe to say that he's doing so. That's actually a good example of that. It looks like a close spot, but when you think it through, it's actually quite good because he against a pot bet, like, and he's raising probably all ace 3s, pocket 3s, ace jacks. So his range is very defined around the jack, 3, and some ace X, of course. So he doesn't have ace king, ace queen. So I really like your creativity in this spot. But if you play against someone that is a little bit more sticky and he start mixing in some cards with some jack X, it becomes quite bad very quickly. So you got to be very sure about that he needs to be folding every single jack. And then it's a very good play. And based on what you say, it could definitely be the case. And then it's one of the spots where you can just second bar everything. And I always say aggression is always the superior strategy on final tables, rather than trying to fold yourself into the money or higher placements. Of course, you got to make it smart. I think that's a smart spot if you have the right read. And sometimes also I hear people bringing up reasons where I'm like, doesn't really make sense. And then they want to have these fantasy reasons. But you have an experienced player, that's definitely valid reasoning. And I would also be honest with you. Like, if I think it doesn't make so much sense, then I would share that. But I think it makes a lot of sense in this spot. Also, very good sizing. Like, I like the range of sizings you're using. Very small, but you can also pot bet. It's like very often only people know 1/3, half pot, 2/3. That, like, those 3 sizings. And everything else is, what? No. This is totally out of my word. Like, so yeah, I really like how you make use of no limit hold'em poker, which means no limit in bet sizings.
Oh, that's good to hear because I'm just kind of out there and trying to kind of make these in-game adjustments on the fly, and
yeah,
you know, and this hand in particular, yeah. But sorry, I just jumped ahead. But go ahead if you want to say anything else about that.
I'm good. If Mariano wants to add something to the previous hand, Michael?
Oh, no, I mean, yeah, I definitely agree with that. Just in a vacuum on the turn, just go for the 1 bet and then shutting down on rivers when called. But like you say, he's probably going to be overfolding jack X a ton, and then yeah, it should just be good in a vacuum. And definitely like the sizing as well. Like, you know, at least 3/4 or near a pot, just to create that little bit of fold equity is obviously gonna, or that little bit of extra fold equity is gonna make a big difference, right? So
yeah,
well played.
This one I don't think is so well played by me. So pre-flop, the chip leader here is in the. Oh, is there a little echo all of a sudden? Can you guys?
Oh,
there
it
it goes.
Yeah, okay, sorry.
Oh, it's okay. So I tried to make an adjustment here, and you know, I went from making a 100K pre to 125. But I wonder if I should just be 3xing on his big blind. Because I know, like, what I do know about this chip leader is that he's very loose, very unconventional, doesn't seem to care much for ICM, and is very kind of experienced in these situations.
Okay.
But yeah, so is this a situation where you maybe even going like to 3x pre-flop?
I think that in general, these kind of loose, sticky players, they're not really willing to even fold more. I would then do it, like with 3s, I don't want to really blow a pot. I just really, you know, I want to take the initiative, want to play in position. and see a flop. Let's say if I have ace king, I would do it. Yeah, I would play very exploited. I mean, he's playing exploiters there as well, right? He's very loose, creative, does some fancy stuff. So yeah, if we know he's kind of sticky, and I mean, it seems he's defending 6-3 off. So you're right with your gut, and then my adjustment would be raising bigger with good hands, raising smaller with weaker hands. Like very exploitative strategy, but yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Hard to hit a 3 here.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, this was so he leads here, but as far as my strategy when he's checking, is this a situation where like I would probably, you know, just be kind of going with what I had been, was like, you know, betting for a small size and then playing pot control, checking turn, and trying to like win at showdown or realize some equity? That's probably how I would have approached this spot had he checked. But I could see myself checking this hand back in like a check back range.
Yeah, I would definitely check back against the bigger stack. Your ICM is huge. We can call pretty much any turn. All his overcards only have 4 outs instead of 6 outs. Open-enders are not going to call, so I'm just checking back. Like, it's a very dangerous flop. It really sucks getting check raised from something like King 7, and then we kind of like have to fold because we're just too often dead against this value range. So yeah, I'm checking back on the flop. It's also not really our texture. Even if I have 10s or jacks, I would be checking back. Like, probably not against the recreational, but this is a flop you're supposed to be checking back a ton. Like, this just doesn't connect with your under the gun range as well. You have a few overpairs, but that's it. Like, you carry around all the broadways, ace highs, you can't really bet with those, so this is a spot. I'm pretty sure as a second chip against a chit leader, in theory, you have to be checking back 100% of hands. You should never be betting on this flop. Like, if you play against a good opponent, all these mid-board, low boards, 100% check back in high ICM situations. There's not a single hand that wants to bet. And I think it's also a very sexy strategy because you have a lot of hands that your opponents don't expect you to have. Even sets are checking back, like flushes are checking back. But again, it's against opponents that are aware of the ICM situation and are check raising very frequently here. So against the recreational, I'll probably never be checking back with strong hands. But against a good opponent, it can play aggressive. You want to be checking back, and that's actually the theory here. Is the chip leader right? He wants to play aggressive, so then we should be checking back.
Yeah, I like that a lot. That's kind of where I struggle the most is, you know, in those situations versus better players in these high ICM situations. I've definitely shown that I'm lack of experience in those situations. And on this turn, like, honestly, I mean, I think I just got a little lost here, to be honest with you.
Everyone would be lost here.
I just, like, when he led that size on the flop, I honestly felt like he was pretty weak. And then I thought, like, okay, maybe I can, like, I don't know, start bluffing, or maybe bet once for like a small size and then just kind of keep my range uncapped, and like maybe I decide to bluff some rivers. But on this turn, I just feel like I should probably just be checking behind and trying to realize or win at showdown.
I mean, if you know my approach in those situations, when we're lost in marginal situation, you can probably already foresee what I'm going to say now. Yeah, but it's one of these typical spots when I don't really know what to do. I'm not, compared to the previous spots, like, we're clueless about what he's going to do. He's sticky, he's loose, so there's some indicator that speak against the bet. I don't want him, you know, don't want to make myself susceptible and appear weak, and now he starts check raising his King 7 of hearts, and I'm like, fuck my life. So I'm just checking back. Like, even if it's a little bit less EV than betting, it's fine. Like, you're making so much EV in open raising, and now getting or investing more and more money into the pot and losing more money from our stack is just going to be not really good. Like, I think if you really try to approach it from a logical and smart perspective, then it's already half of the pie on final tables. I don't know if that's even a good way to say it, but it will help you in so many spots. Always think about what position you are. What are you going to accomplish? Is it going to put yourself in a better situation? I mean, Michael does it knows it from our sit and go coachings. It's the same spiel over and over again, like every tournament or every final table you play. And I think it's just not worth it to, yeah. And then, let's say I would always take the safe route here. Maintain my position. Check always has an extremely high EV. And yeah, and take from there. Even raises, wow. Oh, fuck.
Yeah, he was bringing it, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, it was, he definitely had some moves. He was definitely in there, and
yeah,
he had a reputation for being really loose and kind of spazzy and wild, and I definitely felt that here.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the point. We know it, but we still can't do it. And this is something I also read on YouTube or on social media a lot. Yeah, but when we know he's aggressive, we can just go crazy. No, you can't, because in those 10%, 20% he has it, or even say 25%, doesn't matter. So these occasions where he has it, it's so expensive, it's so devastating for you that you can't play back. Like, that's the same, those situations, let's say we have 15 big blinds and someone jabs 100% into us with another 5 big blind stack present. We can still not call ace-9 off. Even though we're 60-65% favor. We still have to fold almost everything. And this is what people don't understand. You can't even play back. Like, that's why you don't want to make yourself susceptible to those plays in the first place. Lots of checking back, lots of pot controlling, and then with strong hands, let them hang themselves. Start betting into you with low equity hands when you actually have a good hand and checking back. And by doing so, you also protect your weaker hands that you're checking back with.
That makes a lot of sense.
Sure.
This hand that we have coming up here is probably the hand I got, I guess, criticized the most by people I respect, just like fellow pros and stuff. Yeah, I mean, this is something that I guess has been kind of present in my game for a while, which is just like I typically I can be a bit loose, and I've been like willing to go for it in a lot of spots, and you know, in these like cutoff button situations, I tend to fight pretty hard in general. So you'll see here, like this guy, he seemed to be a pretty good player. I played with him most of day 2. He was definitely very capable. Seemed to be a very good player, probably like a tournament pro, like some kind of a grinder. And yeah, so I guess in this spot, I'm basically thinking like, because of the ICM situation, and this is something I don't know enough about, but I just expected him to be calling like pretty strong here on the button, like just given our 2-chip positions. I expected him to have like a lot of like even hands like ace queen, pocket 10s, pocket jacks, pocket 9s. I didn't think he'd be willing to like 3-bet, get it in very light here at all. And I just thought that I'd basically taken away every single button for like the last 2 hours at the final table. I just thought he'd be over bluffing in this spot. So just kind of decided to go for it. But again, like one thing I didn't really think of in game, where I think was probably I should have put more consideration on as well, is that given that this guy is pretty good, if this spot doesn't go well for me, I've created a chip situation where we're both fairly even in chips, and he's one of the tougher opponents on the table, and he obviously can have top of his range here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got a lot of. I mean, I think a lot of the more so the like the recreational players, and I think this is kind of like what people want to see in a sense. Like, when they watch these final tables, they want to see people going for it. But yeah, I mean, I definitely had to like pause and listen to the people I respect, and I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. I mean, because obviously, like I'm pretty far into exploit. I don't have any blockers. Is like the main criticism here. Like even if I just have the ace X off, like people are, exponentially feel better about it.
Yeah, I mean, I just think being at you're basically at the very bottom of your opening range, pretty much too, or at least near.
Yeah.
So I just don't think, as you say, I mean, you have no blockers. Maybe this is the first time he's 3-bet you in a while as well.
Yeah, this is his first 3-bet at the final table.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I just don't think it's necessary at all, being this far down in your range. And then, as you say, if it's going to make a big difference in the chip stacks, obviously, if he's going to be able to pull even with you, I just don't see it being worth it at all. When you had 100,000 invested.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would also skip this spot. I think it's a good spot to play it quite aggressively against this 3-bet. We can 4-bet shoving a lot of hands like suited aces, suited kings, pairs, mixing some 4-bet bluffs with like king 9s, king 8s. Yeah. I definitely need a very strong read to, let's say, 4-bet my entire range here, which if you do it with 9-7 off, which hand are you folding? So yeah, that's a little bit too loose, and I'm not a big fan of it. But props for sharing it. I don't know many players that are, trying to be so open towards feed, making themselves very vulnerable. If you share hands that, I mean, you're sharing it because you already sense that might be a little bit of an overplay, and most of the time people only share hands where they won the pot or, try to put themselves in the spotlight. So that's actually a very good trade to also get feedback on hands that might not have been the best place in your career.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, I'm definitely happy to. I mean, I have kind of the mind that the more I think I probably messed up, the more I'm like wanting to bring it to someone like, you guys, because I think that's where like the most opportunity is for me to improve my game, even though I do look quite foolish when I do sometimes. And then in this spot here, chip leader opens under the gun, king jack suited on the button. I think I can mix in 3-betting, but I don't want to mix in 3-betting really much hands like this versus the chip leader. I think I'm just more incentivized to play a lot of calls.
I think your exploit should just be calling a lot, playing a lot of strong hands in position against a very wide range. So even ace kings, ace queens, I would just be calling here, like with the stack sizes behind. So I really like your call. I mean, if the guy is 4-bet bluffing a lot, then I would always be 3-betting ace king to 5-bet jam. Yeah.
I was gonna say, what do you think your value range would be there, Ben?
Queens plus ace king.
Okay.
Yeah. Like, but only if I have the read that he's capable. Like, probably against a specific opponent, I would be 3-betting ace king. Yeah. Otherwise, I would always be calling it and just even queens, I think, and just really 3-betting kings plus for value. Like, my 3-betting range would just be like 3, 4, 5% in this spot, very, very tight. Like, probably just actually 2-3%. Aces kings are only 1%. A few bluffs like ace 5 suited or a king 10 suited, and that's it. But even those hands, keep in mind he's opening a ton. Like, he's probably opening king 5 suited. He's probably opening 10-9 off. He's probably opening jack 8 suited. So we have position. We have an equity advantage. So
are you second in chips here, Andrew, at this point?
Yeah, by a pretty healthy margin. I think 2.5 million is third place at this point right here.
Oh, okay. So it's you two at the top.
Yeah. So I think here, like, I mean, I don't always continue this versus the chip leader in like this exact situation. But I think kind of going into the final table, I really wanted to put myself in a position to win. And I didn't necessarily, I was willing to take some like, more marginal situations even versus him, because I knew he was going to be probably making some mistakes and probably playing too loose in spots, or, maybe I'm overstating that or overestimating, how many mistakes I think he would make. But I was just willing to continue here. So I think, he doesn't bet very big here either. He bets, I think 175 into like 5 something. Seems like a reasonable continue. I'm going to have some like, ace jack suited, ace queen suited with backdoors, king queen suited. I'm probably continuing all my broadways with backdoors here. And I think in my strategy, I have like pocket jacks, pocket tens, maybe even some pocket queens. So I think I have quite a bit of value that can continue here too. A lot of 10x, some pairs. I don't know what you guys think about this float.
I mean, I think it sounds reasonable.
Yeah, I'm also a big fan of it.
Basically, this would be like the bottom of your range, I guess. Maybe queen jack suited, but yeah, for the small sizing. And you think he's going to be c-betting pretty wide here?
I do. I really do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's also c-betting a lot of jack nines, 8-9s, king nines with back to flush draw. Protection betting a lot of pocket fives, pocket six. I think our overall equity is just insanely good. Would be a very ballsy move from Ben to just jam it here. I think if he kind of perceives that both ranges are very, very wide here, I think it's a great spot. Like he only has to invest 1.2 million to win 900k. I think he has to call at least once. Just way too much equity against both ranges. But that's a problem when you're in that ICM situation.
So my main question here is, I guess, like, I think a lot about, like, what do I want to do with my range here. And I think a lot of my range just, like, wants to bet for, like, a medium to smaller sizing on the turn. If I had to like think about what all my hands want to do, and where I kind of got a little confused is like, okay, but I'm gonna have a lot of like Broadway floats here too, so should I just be checking behind and giving some of those up, versus this turn check? I guess I was kind of, I mean, I thought he would have a lot of like 5s through 9s as well, and like I thought his range was like fairly weak to check here on the turn, and some give ups that were just like broadways that are betting now giving up. So I mean, I'm basically betting 100% on the turn here if I'm betting this hand as well.
I'm just checking back king jack here. Might be bet in chip EV again. This is not a spot where you want to do a lot of betting. He can easily have 5s to 9s. He can easily have a hand like ace 4, ace deuce, ace 3 that's always calling turn. There are just so many no-brainer check calls in his range that you have to fire through on a lot of rivers as well.
It seems kind of similar to the 3s hand on the turn. What you're saying.
Yeah,
a lot of those principles seem to apply here as well.
Yeah. It's the same again. His range is very, very, like he can play this spot very aggressive. Like, he can be pot controlling with queen tens, jack tens. He's even doing it with king tens. It's just, I think if he's aggressive, he's also barreling a lot of like, I don't know. Ace sizes are also not folding against the small sizing. I'm not really, I'm not a big fan of this bet. I'm just checking back. And again, now it opens up and he starts check raising his 4-5 or his 3-5 suited or his ace deuce because he senses weaknesses. He has twice as much chips. He's like, well, if it's wrong, I have still 4 million. Let's put this guy to the test, And then again, you're folding. He folds out 20% equity.
Yeah, I think a main thing here too is that just the fact that you're not really getting any better hands to fold aside from maybe king queen, because I think for this ace x he's probably going to peel to a small bet, and then as Ben said, like all his pairs 10x. So I think we have enough showdown where if he has complete air, we can show it down, or even maybe hit a pair on the river and have him out kicked. But I think the bet doesn't accomplish too much. At least the turn bet, like you're gonna have to bet the river a ton. So yeah,
I could feel that in the moment too. When I bet the turn, I kind of realized that how handcuffed I felt. like what my options were, and that I was going to need to be following through on the river a lot. And if I do that, then, you know, I put myself in a pretty poor situation chip-wise against the chip leader if it doesn't work out, and then I'm kind of fallen into the rest of the pack in a lot of ways, which can be really detrimental.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I just
would you
like?
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, just what I'm thinking here and like what I'm feeling is like, I feel like as I'm putting these chips together that I'm risking too much of my tournament when I decided to bet the turn and not bet this river.
But this is now actually the best street to bluff with this outcome. So this is not the mistake here. It happened on the previous street that you put yourself in those situations, and it always starts somewhere with a mistake pre-flop, a mistake on the flop, when the pots are relatively small, and people always neglect that. I mean, this is literally the best river. I mean, a queen would be decent. A 5 would be decent as well, because maybe not a 5, but yeah, an ace, a king, of course, a queen. I mean, these are the best rivers, but they're not going to come that often, right? So, got a bit lucky here with the runout. It's a good runout for you to bluff. But yeah, as you just said, the mistakes happen on previous streets.
Yeah, it was that was a big one, and I think you know, the concept really, like, from the threes hand really carries through, and I'll think a lot about that, and you know, I think that's something that will be one of the biggest things that I take away from, you know, not only those two hands, but probably this final table.
Yeah. Make sure to also really differentiate between playing against regulars and playing against recreationals. Because against recreationals, you really want to make sure you play your hand max EV. Against a regular, that is I mean, there are also a lot of regulars that don't really understand ICM. So you can also neglect that against them. But in general, against aggressive, loose, fancy opponents, you want to be checking back a lot of your range.
Makes a lot of sense.
Blinds, yeah, what are the blinds now?
The blinds here, they're looks like 40,000, 80,000, okay, with the 80,000 ante from the big blind. So yeah, I mean, basically just over a min raise here.
Yeah, Ace 10 I would probably open raise bigger now against this guy.
Yeah, and at this point, our chip stacks have pulled a little more even. He's got around 7 million. I have around 6.3. And as far as exploit and deviation, I was thinking in game about maybe betting larger here, just because I had top pair and I expected him to call a lot.
Yeah.
But it's just, you know, I kind of wanted to keep with like my strategy, so I just decided to just go with, like, you know, the small sizing. But do you think that would be like a reasonable exploit?
Absolutely. It's but if he's a recreational, I would definitely do it. But not making it too obvious, but at least like 200, 240k. I think they don't really care about the difference in half of a big blind.
Yeah. And then, so my plan on turn is to, you know, bet for like a pretty large sizing on a lot of turns.
Yeah.
I don't think this is one that I wanted to. So yeah, I mean, this was kind of like a range question where I had, like, I thought in game that I would be betting, you know, like pretty much a lot of my overpairs for like a large sizing, and I would be betting, you know, some of my like strongest hands for a large sizing, and then I would probably take a hand like 10x and throw it into a checking range on the 8. I just think it's kind of poor for my range, and I think he's got pretty much every 9-7 that he continues with pre, I think, calls on the flop, and I think he's shown that he can bluff versus like smaller sizings too, especially with hands that aren't that great. Yeah, so I was curious what you guys think about betting versus checking and sizing.
I think you could definitely still bet here for a pretty large sizing. because he's going to have so many pair plus draws. I mean, I guess he's shown inclination to put in raises with those type of hands, but I think if you go big enough, that he'll probably just be calling a lot of those hands, and it'll just be the easiest way to get 2 streets. So I just feel like our hand's still strong enough here.
Yep. I also would always be betting here, and I actually prefer having ace-10 than an overpair, because we block 10-6, 10-8. We block pocket 10s, which can be easily in his calling range pre. I mean, jacks could be possible as well, but I think queens would be 3-betting. So like, yeah, in a cash game, actually in a cash game situation where people always 3-bet 10s plus against cutoff, I definitely prefer having ace-10. Like, blocking some of the 2 pairs and sets, it's just so much better. And he has all the 8-9s, 6-9s, 6-7s. And this is a spot where I don't think he will start turning those into bluff. It would be such a ballsy play to start check raising 9s or pocket 7s and just, you know, making a very big move. I think it would be, he would get a lot of credit. So yeah, I would definitely be check raising. Betting. Like, I don't even mind betting pot here, to be honest.
Yeah, I think he's going to be check raising at way less of a frequency as well versus the big sizing. Like, you shouldn't be too worried about him turning the hand like say 8-9 into a bluff, because I think I mean versus like a third pot maybe, but I think versus the bigger sizings he'll probably play pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's something that I realize watching it back and what you guys are sharing, that I took probably too defensive of a strategy in too many spots and probably left some chips on the table because I did that, because I was a little, you know, his reputation, what I had seen from him, and I think I probably overestimated what he would be doing in spots, you know, like this one. And especially like versus the sizing. I think that's like a huge key point here. Like betting pot here with ace-10 just feels like a really high EV play versus him. And I think the rest of the hand is just kind of standard. He bets and I call pretty quickly.
He bets? Wow, he bets a river?
What should he bet there?
What is he?
Oh.
Okay, he's definitely a bit... Yeah, that's a good indicator that he's definitely not understanding what the dynamics of ICM, that you definitely want to have some pot controls, like you have all the 8-9s, ace-8s, king-8s, you have some 10-9s, 10-7s that could be checking back, pocket 9s, you can have spiked some give-ups with, let's say, jack-5 suited or king-jack offs that you don't want to be barreling, so yeah.
Yeah, so, okay, so we just kind of fast forwarded here. Yeah, so again, like, I guess kind of the strategy I had coming in was like, as far as like 3-betting the chip leader pre-Sean, I kind of had the strategy where I wanted to 3-bet him with like, you know, just kind of like not great hand first. I didn't want to like 3-bet him with a good hand and kind of see how he would react. My plan was to kind of like 3-bet bluff in a spot where like I thought maybe just kind of trying to figure out how he would proceed versus that. I thought this might be like a reasonable spot to slow play. I don't know. I mean, like, even like as I was doing it, I guess the thing that I really should have, the reason why I don't like it now looking back is that he has around 6 million. I actually have around like 6.7, so I'm the chip leader at this point. And I know it's not by a large margin, but I mean, I just have a good enough hand here, I think, to just like, you know, 3-bet and like continue versus aggression.
It's okay. It really depends how you perceive. If you really think he plays so purely out of position, is going to make a lot of mistake, then calling starts slowly outperforming. 3-betting also depends on the blinds. There's so many factors to be considered. It's definitely, I would never say, hey, no, you always have to 3-bet. As a default, it's always a 3-bet, but there are definitely situations where calling starts outperforming 3-betting. So, yeah, it's something where I would tell to you, you need to be able to gather all the important information to put the puzzle together, and then, yeah, if you come to the decision that calling is better, then you go for a call. As easy as that.
Were the blinds around 20 or 30 big blinds?
They're both around. I think the big blind was probably around 30, and the small blind was around 20.
Yeah. Okay. And it's obviously nice to have some hands you can go call with.
Yeah.
Fairly easy.
You know what? I'm just realizing this, and like, if I'm being honest with myself, like, you know, how I was feeling in the moment, and just kind of like thinking back about the whole situation. I think the reason why I called specifically is that I'd kind of fallen into this passive mode versus him, and I was really quite honestly afraid of getting into like a large pot situation where like I 3-bet, he 4-bets, I call, and you know, the flop comes down, whatever, he bets, I call, and then, you know, just like situation where like pocket's really inflated, my hand turns into like a straight hero call, and like maybe I make a mistake against him and I bust myself, or I make a really bad fold with a lot of money in the pot. And I think that I was just having a little bit of fear about like playing too large of a pot against him, and I think that just dictated me calling here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really reasonable though, because you know, if you feel like you have a post-flop skill advantage, you know, keep the pot small, play a lot of pots in position with them, you know, and you can just win a lot of money off them that way. And then, as you say, not risking a big pot while there's other short stacks in there. It seems totally fine.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think a counter to that would just be that I think like this is the kind of guy that's real sticky. He doesn't fold much. I could even see him calling this hand as a 3-bet when I 3-bet him here. And there's just a lot of flops where he's going to be putting in a lot of money behind flop turns, and I can just get a lot of value from a lot of his range when I start 3-betting. So I think if I could do it over again, like I like 3-betting more versus like this particular like sticky type of player, and just be willing to say like, you know, like if he chooses to like do something crazy, like I'm willing to just, you know, react in the moment and, you know, think that I can make like a good decision.
I really like the fact that with the stack size, that's very important. That, yeah, if the blinds are, if they're deeper, like 50, 60 bigs, then it's more effective to speak for 3-betting. But if you have blinds around 20 to 30 big blinds, they start reshoving more often against two players, because there's no more dead money in the middle. So yeah, I really like the idea of flatting against those stacks.
Mm-hmm. So I guess here on the turn is like kind of you know, an interesting decision point for me. I think you know, there's 2 flush draws on the board. Obviously, like, it's not unreasonable to think I could be value betting here with queens versus a turn check. I guess I was just trying to think about like how my range plays and like what hands kind of make sense to check behind, and I thought like I would probably be betting a lot of my flush draws, my good king X, any kind of like pocket 6s, pocket 3s that I have here. Even if I decided to have a hand like you know, pocket 4s or something like that, turn diamonds, I would have a reasonable amount of bets. And I thought just taking a hand like queens here, and you know, kind of, I guess, similar to the last 2 spots we discussed, like kind of marginal turn bets, that I could check that back. So I don't know. What do you guys like here for turn play?
I think that looks good. Checking back.
Yeah, I also like it.
And then now on the river, I'm just trying to decide, like, and again, like, okay, just being totally honest, I think that I was just more afraid of him doing something ridiculous and crazy than I actually probably should have been. I think that I had that in my mind, that he was capable and willing to do that a lot, and I just thought like the value in checking and, you know, very likely winning the pot versus like getting raised and then like, you know, maybe wanting to hero call for like a really large sizing against him. I just didn't think that the value was there.
I think you can definitely value bet this river though.
Yeah, and then just when he raises, I just have to like, you know, make a good decision basically.
You
like,
he checks out of position and you check back?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would always value bet here.
Yeah, exactly. I think from his perceived point of view, I mean, you can still have a lot of missed draws, and I think it's just more likely that he'd just be check calling with some type of, you know, maybe 6x, mid pocket pairs. Obviously, he could come in with a check raise, but I think that's not a good enough reason just to be checking this back. I think it's just too strong. Once he checks twice, because I mean, we've seen him bet before with the sevens, so I assume with King X, he's probably just going to be betting most of the time. So I just feel like you have the best hand, you know, like 90% of the time here.
Yeah. Yeah, I also think so. I would definitely. Also 500, 600k, I think we can value bet relatively big. I think it's only the two pair and set combos that might be trapping sometimes. It makes a lot of sense. I mean, he's doing it so here. But I think ace, king, king, queen, king, jack, king 10 would be value betting very, very frequently. He has 7s, 9s, 10s that are pot controlling now on the river. A 6, an 8. Yeah, it would definitely be. We don't block any of his 8s combos like 9, 8, 10, 8, 8, 7 suited, as well as 8, ace 8 suited. I'm not sure if he opens queen 8 suited. So I think that speaks for value betting with queens and jacks pretty much always. Like he can have jacks, 10s, and he's always snap calling it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of it for me is like, I know it sounds, I mean, I'm a live player at heart, but like when I check back or decide to check back on the river, I know it's like my feeling is like I should for sure be betting, and I think like the reason why I chose not to is like the important thing for me to look at, which is that like I was allowing kind of like my fear of making a mistake for like a check raise to dictate like, you know, leaving money on the table long term versus a river bet, and it's just something I have to like continually kind of coach myself through, and like, you know, making the right decisions, and like knowing that like if I hit that part of the range that wants to check raise, that I'm a good enough poker player to, you know, make a reasonable decision in game. And I think that's like something that I continue to have to like coach myself through.
Yeah.
And then this is the last hand I have marked, which is, you know, probably I'd say like the one I was most frustrated about, that I thought I didn't, I expect to get a lot of backlash on. So here, basically, I just, I thought he would be opening wide in the situation he was in. I knew he was already opening wide, but given I was in the small blind, and there was a tight player on the button and a short tight player in the big blind. I had not 3-bet him once, and I'd been playing like very passively, and I was looking to throw in some light 3-bets versus him to kind of see how he would react. So I think my hand selection here is probably pretty poor as far as like hands that I'm choosing to 3-bet with. I like my sizing in a sense that I wanted to make it like on the larger side to kind of define his range more, deter him from calling, and yeah, I just think overall this is not like a situation that I need to be in kind of increasing my variance. At this point, got him out chipped like around 7.5 million to around looks like 7.3, so we're pretty even. And like my main reason here is just that like, and I don't think that he even kind of realizes this, but I had not chose one aggressive spot versus him in like what is around 5 hours now. So I just so I decided to make this 3-bet.
Yeah, it's mainly an exploitative play. I would also choose some different hands like Queen 10 suited, Queen 9 suited, or a King 10 suited. It's much better. I think that, again, you already have the read that he's sticky and creative. I was actually thinking about King 10 off. Like, these type of players, they're probably calling too many King 10 offs and Jack 10 offs and like even an Ace 9 off. And yeah, no, I want to be more suited. I don't expect that many folds. And I think this hand works very well as a call because we dominate all his 10-9 offs and 9-8 offs, and you expect him to raise very wide, right? So I just want to keep the pot small. And yeah, if I want to build the pot or not build a pot, but want to 3-bet and get some folds, and then I'm choosing more suited and playable hands.
Yeah, and also I think another argument for calling is just like, you know, a big blind that's very short not very short, but like around 20 bigs that is never you know, looking to like re-raise all in with like a lot of hands. And I think like as we see here, you know, like undeterred by the large sizing, just King 10-0, just willing to get in there, and I think that for me, like I totally misjudged that, and I actually thought like his range was going to be stronger than it was to continue, and so I think, you know, doing this, I should have, if I could go back, I definitely would bet for like a small sizing, but I think in game I just decided to give up, not really having a good understanding of like what kind of range of hands he'd be continuing with.
Yeah, I think it should definitely be better. I mean, there's going to be some good turns, King, 9, 8, that you can barrel on. And obviously his range has been shown to be pretty wide, so I think just going like a third pot here should be pretty good.
Yeah, especially the part that his range is wide. When you play against someone sticky, comes with the right range to the flop, I definitely want to be betting this flop here.
Yeah, at this point, I mean, I was just giving up. I know it's frustrating to like say it, run it back, and look at it, and ultimately, I would have liked to have had this one back. I really wasn't sure what to do at that point. I mean, I didn't want to start bluffing and making this pot like even bigger. You know, when he has like his 7s and 9s and like pot control kind of hands, I'm just like, now I'm delayed bluffing and just pot swells to like, you know, 3.5 million, and I'm just like, yeah. So he takes this one away.
I mean, I think turn could probably just go for one bet there. Still, I mean, you have one of your better bluffs that doesn't have much showdown value, and you can still have a lot of just ace high and just utter random shit. I think, you know, if you put out like a 60% pot bet, it should work enough. And then obviously you still have the draw to the nuts, and you can check call on some rivers as well.
Yeah. I was thinking exactly the same, that he has... I mean, he has all... The beautiful thing about a Queen 10 is it unblocks all the king highs and ace highs, like all the ace kings he might have, or ace 4, ace 5, ace 6, ace 7 suited, and which can't call against the big bet. Like 3s, 4s, 6s, 7s, so I would definitely be betting 2/3 pot. And I think just this bet, I'm not even really concerned about what to do on the river, because just like his king queens, and even if he has a king 10 or a king 9 suited, there's nothing really he can do about it. So yeah, I'm very happy to bet the turn here. But it happens, like, because you have all the hands from the final table in your mind, and like, I don't know, you lost some pots, post-flop spots, and then just like, you know, you're not seeing the big picture, and you're not really able to think so clearly, and then you're way more susceptible to make mistakes, and I can definitely relate to that. So happens, but yeah.
Yeah, I think also for me, one thing that happened, I think probably led into this, is that I'm not so used to. I think that at one point they said I was like opening like are in there like 40% of hands, and you know, that for me is like, even though I hadn't been aggressive versus him, I was just like, man, like I kind of realizing like how loose I've been playing, and then like how in there I am, and I know that people are being fed information, and you know, all this is kind of like playing into my mind, and kind of clouding my judgment on what I should be doing in this moment, you know, with this hand, with this part of my range, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess against him, just keep it simple.
Yeah.
You know, like strong linear with 3-bets, and there's no real reason to get out of line against him. I mean, and if you do want to get a bit out of line, you could definitely find a spot where you're in position. Yeah, I just try to keep it simple, I guess. And like Ben says, you could just flat this hand as well, keep the pot small. And you utilize your post-flop edge against this guy. Just because, I mean, yeah, as we can see, he's not folding the 3-bets, so definitely something you want to avoid.
Yeah, well, that's really kind of what I had, guys. You know, I mean, there was obviously I played a lot of hands here, and I ended up getting down to heads up and taking second place, which was, you know, I guess a pretty good result overall. Kind of frustrating. We got heads up. I mean, basically pulled pretty much even in chips, and then basically lost it all in one hand, which was pretty frustrating to kind of feel like, you know, I was getting back in there and I was going to have a chance to win, and then just kind of then the spot comes up, and I just I'm not too certain. Like, I defended 6-2 suited out of the big blind heads up, and decided to fast play my hand. You know, we were both at this point fairly close in chips, so this was kind of like the last hand for me. But yeah, I think next time hopefully I'm able to pull it out. I don't know. You know, I don't know if this hand's worth noting or commenting on, but it was, you know, I just basically decided to like go for like almost a pot size bet here, and he shoves. So I didn't find the fold.
What happened?
You check raise flop?
Yeah, it says here, like, so he opened.
How many players
he
left?
opened a 300. This is the final hand. This is heads up.
Ah.
Yeah, I was just kind of giving the spoiler to the end because those were the only hands I had marked to go over, and then you know, we got heads up here, and this was the final hand. So he opened. I called for around like a 2.3, 2.4 sizing with 6-2 suited. I thought about 3-betting pre, but he's not really the player type that I wanted to be 3-betting this kind of hand against. And yeah, I called and check raised on the flop, and bet for like a large size on the turn, and didn't want to fold it, so he wins.
It's so nasty to fold there. Like, if he just starts shoving his overpairs, it's like, I don't think you can ever fold here. Like, you block sixes and deuces so much. It's just nines. It's 3 combos of nines, 1 combo of deuces, 1 combo of sixes. So it's like 5 combos, and then if he just jams 1 overpair, it's like 6 overpairs, and again and 5 sets. So I mean, he has some equity with his overpairs. Like, I don't think he's peeling all 4 5s. I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know. Like, and he could be shoving an ace-4, ace-5 in diamonds, or like an 8-7 in diamonds, or a 3-4, 3-5 in diamonds. I really don't see how we can ever fold here. Like, you're 5 million behind. He can just like put you on an ace-9, king-9 that you're playing for value. Your dynamics were so loose against each other. I think you can never fold here. He can even be shoving 3-2 suited, like, and then you're getting owned. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't love it, but I was just not folding.
Yeah. You snapped fold.
That's the look of a second place finisher right there.
Yeah, it's an amazing result though, for sure.
Yeah, congrats, man.
It's a big tournament.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I mean, I'm so grateful that you guys were willing to take some time out to do this. I've I've been fortunate enough to make a couple final tables over the last few years, and never really had a chance to like look too deeply into them. And this is the first time I was able to. And I think, obviously the hope is to take what I learned here and, use some of that and win a big one.
Yeah,
for
congrats,
sure.
Not so many people are able to find the transition from cash game to tournaments, but I think it's also because you play more live cash, so you play a more exploitative style anyway, which I think is way more suitable for tournaments. Correct me if I'm wrong. Because these hardcore online cash game grinders, they're a little bit more, GTO and balancing, but the player pool in tournaments is so much weaker that a more balanced style, a more GTO style is actually not that great. So yeah, I mean, given your thought process and given the input you've been sharing with us, I believe that you're already trying to play a very exploitative style and try to maximize the EV of your hand instead of thinking, oh, what am I supposed to do with my entire range here, which is a very good which is an important requirement for winning in tournaments.
And that's what I love about your site. Christy and I, we both study Raise Your Edge. We love it, and I think one of the things I'm most interested in when I'm on there is kind of the side that I'm not so as familiar with, which is the more not to say like balanced, but like the more like how does my range want to play here? Like thinking about how I'm going to play against like very good players, because I've played against a lot of these world-class players over the years in these big tournaments, and there's just such a large separation between them and myself. I'm so fascinated, and I want to try to close that gap as much as possible. And I found your site, and it's been great. And I'd love to win a tournament in the next year or two and put your guys' name out there and say like, hey, this is what I'm doing. You guys need to be doing this too. And I see that happening very soon. So thank you guys again so much.
Even if it just keeps if you keep up with second placement finishes in these tournaments, I think you wouldn't be so unhappy about it either, right?
Yeah, you're right. I think you're right about that too.
All right. Thank you very much. I really enjoy it. And to give us the opportunity to share our experience with others, with you, and hopefully it helps you.
Yeah, thanks, buddy. That was fun. Congrats again on the win. Are you going to be playing in the series, I assume?
Yeah, I'll be playing. I'll be playing in the series this year. I've played pretty much for like the last 8 years, and
nice.
Yeah. So I'll be seeing, I guess, at least maybe one of you out there. I know, Ben, you don't really play. Do you travel to many of the live tournaments?
Not really. I might be playing some tournaments in Vegas this year, but apart from that, I haven't really planned anything yet.
Well, best of luck, guys. Thank you again so much, and I'll be. Yeah, thank you, guys.
All right.
Take it easy.
Bye.
Okay. All right. Bye.